Hello and welcome to this masterclass on the items list. Is it true that you've only ever used Fusion FX for pretty pictures? Well, let's make it really work hard for you. Here I've got a simple little layout, and there are a couple of shortcuts. If I were to right click in the middle of the floor plan, choose items list, you could also use Control 2. However, on the viewing tab we also got the items list here. That is the items list. So it works in conjunction with the floor plan. The items list, the floor plan. Well, it has a better link than that. And if I were to select that tool unit and then choose to go to view and items list, that unit is selected on the drawing. Again, and conversely, if I were to choose that base unit and then choose Control 3, it gives me back my floor plan. So the two work together very well. Well, we can also multi-select. So if I wanted to perhaps select that group there, I've got the base unit, the wall unit and the worktop, and then choose Control 2 to get to the items list. There are my two items selected. However, what you'll notice is the worktop's not shown. Well, there's a little drop down here in the items list, and we can choose to selecting the graphic items. There are all the long items, the worktops, the plinth, the cornice perhaps, and the oven and the hob are all there, all the items in the graphic list. So we have a selection in here what we can choose to display or not. We could come in here and also choose the fixtures, and in there with the ceiling, the floor, the door. So if there was something in there that you found difficult to actually select for whatever reason, you can actually click on that object, then press the delete key, and that would delete that object from your floor plan. So if you like, the items list is a central part of what we're doing, but it has a lot more going for it in this little drop down here, because we can actually come in here and choose this, a field chooser. And this is a field chooser, it's very powerful. So if for instance I wanted to choose graphic sizes, I can simply bring it out of the store, put it on the top line and expand it, and there are my graphic sizes. So for instance, now if I were to perhaps click on that tool object, I could then come into items and let's just change the depth for argument's sake to 300 millimeters. It actually shows the 300 millimeters on the floor plan, and if I were to use control number 3, that goes back to the floor plan. You can see now the base unit has been reduced in depth. Well, I could use Control Z. Control Z is simply undo. It's back at its original size. If I use Control 2 to go back to the items list, there it is in all its glory. So we can arrange all sorts of things with this field chooser. We could come through and perhaps choose the quantities. So any way you wanted to, there is the quantity box. I can move these things around, and if I no longer want the graphic size, I simply put it back into the field chooser, because what's going on in here is actually going to be reflected later in your quotation or your report. Maybe for instance we want to choose the annotational index, and we can put that anywhere we want to. Now at the moment you'll notice the annotation numbers are entered in as 0, and that's very simple. Again, going to Control 3 or the floor plan, these are now only representing the names of the cabinets. So I need to go to annotate by, and choose numeric by type and position. There they are, they're all now annotated. So if I choose to go to the view, the items tab, and here if I were to refresh that now, simply by double clicking on the annotational index, there they are. They're represented. Everything's a 1, so I could choose to put that back through there. I can reorder this wherever I want it to go. I could make price more keen simply by clicking on that item and putting it into that position. So all of these columns can be adjusted to suit yourself, simply whatever, and you can have as much as you wanted in here. Alert is an interesting one. Alert can be placed, and what it's suggesting here, these little bells, is that these items have been modified in some way. They're not the full length, they've been trimmed or whatever else. Well, that's fine. I've trimmed the plinth. I no longer need to know that. I can pop it back into the list. So this works extraordinarily well for you. Just remember that the items list is hiding in the viewing tab, and it's there we can choose to use items by type, manufacturing position. There it's adjusted them. So you can use this items list in many other ways as well. Let's make a little scenario. For instance, you require an additional base unit, wall unit or whatever else, more worktop, more plinth. We can simply bring in a base unit by choosing it, adding it, and it actually goes into the list for me, but it's not on the floor plan. Do you remember the example I gave you? If you highlight something and then go back to the floor plan, you'll find that there's nothing highlighted on this at all. If you notice, by the way, this 800mm drawline base unit does not have an annotational index on it because it's not on the floor plan. So if you like, this is an area that you can add more material to actually complete the design without it being drawn for whatever reason. It could be covering up an electric meter, for instance. It could be breaking down that base unit to actually box in certain areas that would be requiring boxing. So the items list is the middle part of 3. Part 1, the drawing. Part 2, the items list. And part 3 is actually the quotation. So just remember, what you're placing in the items list is reflected in the final quotation. And do look out for that next masterclass, the masterclass on creating reports.